Hey guys, it's Chris here. Originally, I was going to do a video on my VHS update, a huge VHS update, so I decided to delay the video because of due to some overdue request to do a video on this update video. So I had to, since I was a little busy working on the other things going on, because anyways. Today, this is going to be a very special video because what happened, for those of you who watched or listened to it last night, after 48 years it's been on the air on the radio station at 95.5 FM, a radio station has been a part of the New York City. And you know what the name of the radio station was? WPLJ. Yes, WPLJ has been on the air since 1971, and it continued right to the very end of what happened last night. Well, it's been announced that the station was sold to, Cumulus sold to a company which is Educational Media Foundation, and flipped over to Christian rock. Yeah, Christian rock. I really don't like Christian rock music. I know, I hate Christian rock at all because of WPLJ's demise. I'm going to give you a little bit of a little history lesson here. Okay, this is what it looks like back then. WPLJ was a very iconic radio station, which was part of the station at 95.5 FM. Going back to the heyday of rock station, it started as a rock format when it was originally WABC FM in 1971. When it flipped over to, when WPLJ started as a rock format, it began as an album rock station in the early 70s. And the one I'm listening to it right now on the other radio station, WROW, they're playing FM by Steely Dan. That's the song was first heard on WPLJ in the late 70s when it was New York's best rock. And yeah, the next song was, it has nothing to do with PLJ. It was actually Popsicles and Icicles by the Mermaids. The song was written by David Gates, who was later became Bread. He was a songwriter who wrote this song. And David Gates wrote that song. And that's appropriate to not to play this older stuff on PLJ. Yeah, it was really well done. It was very popular. A rock format became more popular to compete with WNEW-FM and many others. Yeah, that was because it was a rock audience. What WPLJ used to play? The Beatles, Led Zeppelin, Jimi Hendrix, and a couple of others. I know the first song ever played on PLJ back in 1971 was none other than Jimi Hendrix, All Along the Watchtower. It was the first song that was played on PLJ. It turned out to be his very first song ever on PLJ. And I'll give you a little bit of what is WPLJ? Is that the call letters? It was taken. The initials came from a song. It was originally called what was this? It was a 7. Yeah, let me give you a little bit of a 45 record on this thing. I'll show you what it is. Or here it is. This is where the song originally came from. A doo-wop group known as the Four Deuces. That's right. It was the Four Deuces. It was named. The song was originally titled WPLJ, which was called White Port Lemon Juice. Yeah, it was. They should have added AKA White Port Lemon Juice. That was the name of the title. It was the full title of a song. It was actually called WPLJ. But in the 70s, the call letters for WPLJ stood for, which actually PLJ stand for Peace, Love, and Joy. Yeah, it's kind of different. It has nothing to do with the song White Port Lemon Juice. Yeah, White Port Lemon Juice. That was the name of the song. If you want to hear the full song, just hit the link below in the description. Yeah, Leon Me. We're listening to Leon Me, right? Bill Withers. Yeah, it's not even PLJ, but yeah, but it was yeah. But later it was redone. It was long later become a hit for Club Nouveau back in 1987. Yeah, that's right. That's when I first heard it on PLJ back in the day. Yeah, let's get back on the story here. The song by the Four Deuces the original version was actually from the 50s. So that was long before the station, before the name came from the initials of called WPLJ. Okay, anyways, to get back to this radio history though, this was a very interesting story. It started after the first 13 years as a rock station. First 12 to 13 years when it was a rock station, played all the great music. And then, of course, by around 1983, it went top 40. The station has shifted to top 40 when it became a hit music station. It went from rock to hit music back in like late July '83, and then a month later, Z100 came on the air, and they became competing with WPLJ. And yeah, they Z100 beats out PLJ, and Z100 became a #1 radio station in New York City. And PLJ was at the top 10. It was in the top 5 or the top 10. It did very well, of course, during the top 40 era. Remember the name Hit Radio 95 or Power 95? Remember that? Yes, it was. Remember the phrase Hit Radio 95? Yep, there it is. Hit Radio 95. It was back in the 80s when after the station went top 40 from rock, it was actually called Hit Radio 95, and then in the mid 80s by the mid 80s it was Power 95. Remember that? Remember Power 95? That's right. It was become later at a top 40 station that goes head to head with Z100, probably New York's favorite CHR station. And yeah, this is one of the reasons why that Power 95 was a radio station. They play a lot of great CHR type music from the 80s and mostly the 90s. You know, this was also at the time Power 95 was fairly well known for its New York radio listening audience. I think that's let's see what this is. Here it is. That's Power 95. If you remember that, and it ran probably the late 90s. No, late 80s. If you don't know, that was because WPLJ was still Power 95. By probably till the late 1980s. And then by the early 90s, it became WPLJ again as a hot adult contemporary format, where they brought Scott Shannon, the station that brought Scott Shannon to the format. And then there's actually, this is from the 90s, they have WPLJ. And then there's also, by probably into the 2000s, yes, it says Scott and Todd in the morning. And then, yes, there's actually, and then right up until probably by 2014, they have one last logo. This was their final logo, WPLJ. That was his last logo. There it is. And that is brought to the final chapter of this radio format. Oh, yes, and there's Bruce Springsteen's Dancing in the Dark is playing right now. This was the song that I first heard on Power 95, or Hit Radio 95, back in like 84. This is where I'm listening to Saturday Night at the Oldies, and yes, we'll give you a little track record of all the PLJ stuff. Before we do, let's get to this. I know the big question is, where did all the WPLJ longtime fans, listeners of WPLJ is going to? Well, after last night, after the format change, well, a lot of the audience would go to other radio stations. You know, a lot of longtime listeners of PLJ would go to radio stations. Here it is. Here we have here. Look at this. This is WGNY, and this is a radio station, Fox Oldies. It's actually 50s, 60s, if you're at format. Yeah, they played a little bit of classic rock here or there. Yeah, sometimes occasionally plays some classic rock to go with it. And a lot of the songs that came from WPLJ when it first hit the airwaves in the early 70s, back when it was New York's best rock. And they'll give you a little bit of a track record here. Yeah, there's also Revolution by the Beatles. That was first heard on PLJ since the early 70s, back in 71. There's a couple of other songs that have not played on that don't play them on PLJ. I know Valerie, Hey Joe by the Jimi Hendrix Experience. That's also played on PLJ. That was when it first heard on PLJ. Was Hey Joe. There's also Red River Rock. That's not Maybe by Janis Joplin. That's also first heard on WPLJ. It was later redone. It was in 1970. That was Maybe by Janis Joplin, but until the 3 Degrees did a great version of Maybe, and yeah, the 3 Degrees nailed Janis Joplin's remake of that song. Yeah, the 3 Degrees nailed it. I didn't like Janis's version. I think the 3 Degrees version is way better. They both released that simultaneously that same year. Okay, that's enough of that. Like a Rolling Stone, a big #1 record. It was a #2 record. It came out by Bob Dylan. That was also heard on PLJ. More Than a Feeling, also first heard on WPLJ since the 70s, when it was during the first years as New York's best rock. More Than a Feeling. There's a couple of others we're going through. It Ain't Me, Babe was first done by Bob Dylan. That was also on PLJ during the early years of the rock format. There's also Ain't Got No Home. That's not there. New York Mining Disaster, 1941 by the Bee Gees. That's also first heard on PLJ. The Monkees. I don't know. That's also. I don't know what. I can't figure out all the names of the songs that first heard on PLJ. Everybody's talking Come On to My Bow. Heart of Stone by the Rolling Stones. That's also first heard on PLJ during the course of its run. There's also, I just have to give Saturday in the Park by Chicago, first heard on WPLJ during the first numerous years. There's Sweet Judy Blue Eyes by Crosby, Stills, and Nash. It was an album track, but it was never issued as a single. But it was a classic Crosby, Stills, and Nash song that was also first heard on WPLJ during its early years as a AOR rock format when it first started. And that's why they got there since the first years as a rock format. There's also, that's Andy Williams. Yeah, that's not on PLJ. It used to be on WNEWAM back in the day. Tuesday Afternoon by the Moody Blues. The follow-up to Nights in White and Satin. Tuesday Afternoon, that song was a follow-up to Nights in White Satin. I Can't Explain by The Who. That's also played on PLJ. That song usually heard on WPLJ. Brown Eyed Girl. And there's also Fill Me Up Buttercup. Oh, this song is actually going here. Witch Doctor, The Stroll. Yeah, that's not right. Let's see if there's any song that was played on the air. Long Train Runnin'. Yep, that song's first heard on WPLJ. And there's also Cara Mia. Searching. Lodi, Heart of Glass. That's right, Heart of Glass first heard on WPLJ during the era of 1979. That was when PLJ was a rock station. They added some other upbeat rock hits like Blondie's Heart of Glass. That's also heard on WPLJ. Living in the Past by Jethro Tull. That's also first played on WPLJ. There's some bebop. Nah. I Want You, Bob Dylan. I Gotta Get a Message to You. It's also PLJ. And there's also that was a pretty well. A lot of these songs were picked. Rock Me by Steppenwolf. That's also her first heard on PLJ. Across the Universe. That's an album track by the Beatles from the Let It Be album. First heard on WPLJ back in 1971. It's first heard on WPLJ. 25 or 64, Chicago. There's Call Me. There's also Stuck in the Middle with You by the Steelers Wheels. Break On Through to the Other Side by the Doors. It was their first top 10 hit, but it didn't make to number one until sometime their second single, Light My Fire, became their first number one. Break On Through by the Doors. Also first heard on WPLJ and during the existence as when it was New York's best rock. Proud Mary by Creedence Clearwater Revival. There's Positively 4th Street by Bob Dylan. That's also heard on PLJ. She's a Rainbow, Rolling Stones. Whole Lotta Love by Led Zeppelin. That's the worst song ever. I think I prefer King Curtis and the Kingpins did a great version. It was a great instrumental version of Whole Lotta Love. You can check out King Curtis. Yeah, King Curtis was doing well with that. Did a pretty good version. That was kind of more jazzy, more metal. It doesn't sound metally, but it has a more jazzy vibe to it. Yeah, go ahead. If you like King Curtis, if you don't like Led Zeppelin's version, go listen to King Curtis. They did a pretty good version. It has the best version of Whole Lotta Love. This was also first heard in edition. Yeah, not really pretty close to it. I didn't like the middle part of the song. I hate the middle part of the song. I skip it right in the half of the song. Yeah, I heard the first time. I heard first half of it, but the second half, right in the middle of the song, I hate it. That sucks. I think this was actually, remember this, the first song was played on WPLJ. It was back in 1971. It was Whole Lotta Love by Led Zeppelin from their classic album Led Zeppelin 2, the classic album. There's also While My Guitar Gently Weeps by the Beatles from their White Album, also played on PLJ. And look, 618, around that time, if I missed listening to, I missed recording Bobo's show the day after the format change, All Along the Watchtower from the Jimi Hendrix Experience. That was the first song ever played on WPLJ back in 1971. That Jimi Hendrix, the song was featured in the movie called A Bronx Tale back in the 90s. That's the first song ever played on WPLJ when it was New York's best rock, when it was called Rock in Stereo. That's the way it sounded back in 1971. The first song ever played on WPLJ was All Along the Watchtower. The Who, the Magic Bus, that's also first heard on WPLJ. Shaking It All Over, also by the Guess Who. And that's it. Yeah, a lot of good songs. I'd have to keep search to skim through all the songs that played on, that usually heard on WPLJ. Back in the first years as a rock format. Back when it first heard on as a rock format, I gotta tell you. And now let's go to WROW for example. This is Magic 590. And yes, I'm listening to it right now. And look at all the songs. Dancing in the Dark by Bruce Springsteen. That was first heard on PLJ back in the 80s. It was when it was a top 40 radio station. When they went from rock to top 40 in 1983. And yes, and this was first heard on back when it was Hit Radio 95 or Power 95. That's the song that played. Dancing in the Dark by Bruce Springsteen. Lean on Me by Bill Withers, that's also a song first heard on PLJ. F-Fab by Steely Dan, yes, I heard the song earlier in the few minutes ago. That song played on, first heard on PLJ, since it was New York's best rock in the late 70s. Will You Still Love Me from Chicago, also first heard on PLJ during the Power 95 years. Yeah, that's right. You remember Power 95? That was back in the 80s. And yes, I heard the Raspberries Go All the Way. First heard on WPLJ. Right Place, Wrong Time. Dr. John. Marcel's. That's not on PLJ. That was CBS FM. Carefree Highway by Gordon Lightfoot. That's also WPLJ. That was one that was first heard on PLJ. There's also, I Told Every Little Star that, nah, that's not PLJ. I just want to look at, One Toke Over the Line by Brewer and Shipley. It's also PLJ. Gary Rafferty, Get It Right Next Time. Also first heard on PLJ. Candle in the Wind by Elton John. That was actually the first heard on WPLJ in the 70s. Miss You by Rolling Stones. Also, it was first heard on WPLJ during New York's Best Rock. Yes, the other radio station was playing Heart of Glass, but this one they played the same. The different radio station played Heart of Glass at 6:03. Yeah, but WGNY also played the same song, but this station radio played the same song that was played on another radio station. Sometimes When We Touch by Dan Hill. Against the Wind, that's right. Bob Seger and the Silver Bullet Band, that's also PLJ. Time Passages, Al Stewart, first heard on PLJ. Margaritaville by Jimmy Buffett, also first heard on PLJ. And there's also Philadelphia Saturday in the Park by Chicago, El John, Philadelphia Freedom, yep, first heard on WPLJ. And there's also Strange Magic by Electric Light Orchestra, first played on WPLJ. There's also, Mercy. Reeling in the Years. Michael Crawford's, nah. This is one, The Rose. There's also Crazy Little Thing Called Love by Queen, first heard on WPLJ. Back when it was still New York's best rock. Crazy Little Thing Called Love by Queen. Sweet Caroline. I know that's not PLJ. Please Come to Boston by Dave Loggins, first heard on PLJ. Sister Golden Hair by America, first heard on PLJ. Stuck With You by Huey Lewis and the News, also first heard on Power 95. There's What Is Life, George Harrison. First heard on WPLJ. Lido Shuffle by Boz Scaggs, first heard on PLJ. If You Could Read My Mind, Gordon Lightfoot. Maggie May by Rod Stewart. And there's a whole bunch of country stuff on here. Yep. These are usually part of back in the days of WHN and WYNY. All these good stations, when that has something to do with PLJ. Yes, if you heard Kevin Richards earlier today, if you haven't listened to Kevin Richards' Classic Country Hall of Fame show, they played a lot of great old country stuff from the 60s, 70s, 80s, from the stations you remember from the days of WHN and WYNY. Back when great country stations in New York City played a lot of great country stuff in New York City. Remember WHN and WYNY. That's all the songs that was played back when WHN and played all this good stuff. like Me and Bobby McGee. The original version was done by Chris Christopherson, was later became a hit for Janis Joplin in 1970. Devil Went Down to Georgia, Charlie Daniels Band. Grandpa, Tell Me About the Good Old Days by the Judds. That was also from WHN or WYNY. Donna Fargo's Happiest Girl in the USA, that's also WHN. And Coward of the County, that's also WHN. Conway Twitty, You've Never Been This Far Before, that's also WHN. Anne Murray's remake of the Monkees' classic Daydream Believer, that was also WHN. Patsy Cline's Crazy, also heard on WHN. And the other radio stations. Oh Load to Me by Don Gibson is also heard on WHN. Waylon Jennings and Linda on My Mind, Conway Twitty. These are all WHN, WYNY stuff that was played. Used to play them back in the good old days in New York City when country music heard on New York radio. Since the days of WHN and WYNY. That's right. Yeah, it was WYNY. It was a country station. Both two great country radio stations that dominate the country music airwaves. Well, Up on the Roof, James Taylor, that's also WPLJ. Yeah, enough of that. It was enough of that. That's also on a different radio station. That would gain a lot of audience from the loss of WPLJ. Yeah, great radio. You know, let's go to the last station on board. Promises, Promises by Naked Eyes. That's also PLJ. That's also WBPM. That's also another Hudson Valley station that brought all the audience brought a chunk of audience from the loss of PLJ. Huh, look at this. Promises, Promises by Naked Eyes. Love is the Battlefield by Pat Benatar. Give Me All Your Lovin' by ZZ Top. That was New York's Best Rock. Blackwater, Doobie Brothers. One Headlight by the Wallflowers, that's also PLJ. Ricky Don't Lose That Number by Steely Dan, PLJ. I'm Still Standing, Elton John, PLJ. Hit Radio 95. Summer 69, Bryan Adams, PLJ. Power 95. Styx, Lady, PLJ. New York's Best Rock. Touch Me All Night Long by Kathy Dennis, WPLJ. American Woman, Guess Who, WPLJ, New York's Best Rock. Don't Stop Believin' by Journey. Yep, that was the song the last song played on Todd and Jane's final morning show to close out with Don't Stop Believin'. That's right, that's on the last day of WPLJ. Self-Control, Laura Branigan, PLJ. Coming up, Paul McCartney, PLJ. Every Little Thing She Does Is Magic, WPLJ. Love's in the Air, Escapade, Janet Jackson, WPLJ. Mojo Radio, I think we call it. Give Me a Little Bit, Supertramp, PLJ. Come Monday, Jimmy Buffett, PLJ. Here I Go Again, Whitesnake, Power 95, WPLJ. Landslide, Fleetwood Mac, WPLJ, New York's Best Rock. Working for the Weekend, Loverboy, WPLJ, New York's Best Rock. River of Dreams, Billy Joel, WPLJ, 95.5 PLJ. Under My Thumb, Rolling Stones, WPLJ, New York's Best Rock. Take It to the Limit, Eagles, WPLJ, New York's Best Rock. Into the Groove, Madonna. Power 95, Hit Radio 95. I was like, oh my gosh, look at all these songs. Look at all the songs they played over the course of its run, of its years, 48 years. When it was played, when WPLJ first heard all the great songs. Chicago, from beginning of the Somebody to Love by Queen. That's also New York's Best Rock. Look at this. Am I the Same Girl? That's actually WPLJ. And Heart of Glass at 6 o'clock. Yep, that's right. The other three stations that play this actually the same thing. Day in the Life of the Beatles that was the flip side to Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band with a little help from my friends. It was re-released in 1978. It was first issued in 1967. It was as a closing track to the Sgt. Pepper album. A Day in the Life has the final cut from the album. But then actually it was re-released. It never issued as a single until 1978 when it was really re-released, when this single was released as the B-side to Sgt. Pepper's With a Little Help of My Friends. Because the song failed to chart because of the movie that bombed in 1978, featuring the Bee Gees. Wham! Everything She Wants, PLJ, I Love Rock and Roll, PLJ, New York's Best Rock, I Really Like to See You Tonight, England Dan, PLJ. Every Time You Go Away, Paul Young, Power 95, WPLJ. Somebody's Baby by Jackson Browne, WPLJ. Staying Alive by the Bee Gees, that's also WPLJ. I really know it was during the disco heyday. They play a lot of these upbeat rock songs. These are so upbeat. Yeah, Thompson Twins, Hold Me Now, WPLJ. Hold Me, Fleetwood Mac, WPLJ. Good Morning, Beatles from Sgt. Pepper, WPLJ. Don't You Want Me, The Human League, WPLJ. Told the Wet Sprocket All I Want from PLJ. Barracuda, Heart as heard on WPLJ during the heyday of New York's Best Rock. Heart by Barracudas by Heart. That's also heard on WPLJ. I mean, back when remember those original PLJ DJs were Carol Miller, Pat St. John, Tony Pig. Yeah, they also played a lot of good stuff on there. And then Jem Kerr came to do the job at PLJ. 8675309, Tommy Two-Tone, that's also PLJ. Total Eclipse of the Heart, Bonnie Tyler, WPLJ. When it went top 40. The Things You Do for Love, PLJ. You Give Love a Bad Name, Bon Jovi, WPLJ during the Power 95 era. When I See You Smile, Bad English, WPLJ, when it was actually it was then called 95.5 PLJ. Hell, that was a lot of good songs. Look at all these songs. Look at all the songs that was played that over the years, back when WPLJ was so popular, they played a lot of good songs on there. King of Wishful Thinking, Look at All This, Stuck With You, Another Brick in the Wall, a whole bunch of other songs that was been played on PLJ. Look at that. Uptown Girl, I'll Stand By You, Sledgehammer. Man, these are great songs back in the day when, a lot of you people have been listening to, go check out the radio station. If you're a longtime WPLJ fan, I highly recommend WBPM. This is a radio station if you want to check out. If you're a fan of this, and then if you're a fan of WPLJ, if you're a long-time listener of the format back in the good old WPLJ, I recommend this radio station. Yeah, there's no question about it. Or this one is, and there's also 98.3 WTRY. This is the radio station. You can try it out. Oh, and here's the thing. Here's the catch here. There's also 98.3 TRY. Greatest hits. These are all the good songs that played on WPLJ. This is look at this. There you go. These are all the good songs that was played on PLJ. Look at this. The Who live in Fenway Park. And there's also I get this thing. Where's the actual where's the playlist? If you know, there's actually some of the playlist that was played on the radio. Recently played. Hardened by Heart by Quarterflash, Hold the Line by Toto, and Footloose by Kenny Loggins. These were all played on WPLJ. These were played on WPLJ. Well, That's if you're listening to if you are a fan of the old WPLJ, yeah, try listening to WTR 98.3 TRY. You could go up to Albany and get WTRY. They did very well with this thing because see they have yes, Oldie 93.5. If you're up in the upper end of the Hudson Valley area, if you're in the upper Hudson Valley area, yeah, I highly recommend. There's Oldies 93.5, and there's also a playlist of Columbia and Greene counties hits. There's also Oldies 93.5. There's if you're in the upper Hudson Valley area. There's recently played Sweet Home Alabama, Leonard Skinner, Heart in My Heart by Quarter Flash, and Hold the Line by Toto. Those were recently played. Yeah. If you are a fan of the state, if you are a fan of them, of the old WPLJ, yeah, highly recommend this station. It's got a lot of great songs that WPLJ used to play them back in the first 48 years as a New York station for playing New York's best rock and the top 40 period from Hit Radio 95 to Power 95. Those were great times to hear PLJ. And you know, if you're a current listener, you can try out other radio stations as well. This is there's also a radio station I really recommend. WSPK. There's also WSPK. There's K104. Yeah, that will bring a lot of the audience from this would bring a lot of these current listeners can go to K104. A lot of these longtime listeners of probably current listeners of WPLJ, since we lost the radio station last night, would go to K104. That's right. There's also. There's also, okay. KissFMHV.com. There's also, yes, there it is. A lot of current listeners of WPLJ from recent years could go to this station. Yeah, to hear some of the stuff like current hits. Yeah, they should play a lot of current stuff. Would also go into this station, and then you end up at Z100. Yeah, a lot of because of WPLJ's demise. Yeah, they will go to the station there, and then you go to another radio station over there. There's WHUD. If you go to Google search it to see, a lot of listeners can go to. There's WHUD. There's WHUD. Yeah, you can get a lot of the current listeners to go to WPLJ, from WPLJ to go to WHUD. And there's also a lot of songs on there. Deep Blue something, Breakfast at Tiffany's. Yeah, that's not having nothing to do with an Audrey Hepburn movie. Yeah, it's a title of a song that's named after the movie with Audrey Hepburn. There's Cyndi Lauper, All Through the Night, from back in the WPLJ period. There's Jimmy Cliff's I Can See Clearly Now. There's actually from WPLJ's years. And you can listen to all the songs you hear on since when it first heard on WPLJ. That's when they first heard the song back then. And then you right up until the very end. These are all the songs you hear on the radio station. And if you want to see a list of what the list of songs go to, well, I would like to see it clearly. I don't know what's going on with Toon Genie these days. And this is I'm Gonna Lose You by Meghan Trainor and John Legend. That's the song that was also on PLJ and when it was a current station on what it was actually when then WPLJ when it was current. They played this one because this is what a lot of these were crappy pop. I mean, this is when PLJ was going bye-bye. That was right up until when WPLJ went bye-bye. I mean, that was it. And that was done. You know, A lot of the listeners of PLJ would ever end up somewhere on the radio. Yeah, we can find other radio stations to go to when we did that, when we were losing the another great legendary radio station after 48 years. Yeah, WPLJ, and yeah, say goodbye to that 48-year-old station and say hello to K-Love. Yeah, K-Love is now announced a listener-supported station. Yeah, that thankfully it's on its first day, and this is the second day when it's still a K-Love. Yeah, I don't know what is going on there. Yeah, back then it was announced a few months ago when Cumulus sold WPLJ to a company known as Educational Media Foundation, and then a few months later, around that time, they made a big announcement, a major change coming to WPLJ, and they made a big announcement that they're leaving the airwaves after 48 years. I did record a lot of these shows in the last 2 days, and it was fantastic. And last night, I listened to it last night after I came home, after I checked the recording. It was the end of an era for WPLJ, and I listened to Grace Taylor's final address to our listeners. Yeah, they made one of his last words, he said, from high above Madison Square Garden, this is the world's famous WPLJ, New York. And then it goes dark, and then it goes dead air for probably about 2 minutes or so, and then K-Love was born. Yep, K-Love is born. I think that was it. PLJ is done, it's over. I think it's over. It's the end of an era for WPLJ. After 48 years, it's now history forever. And yes, WPLJ is off forever. I mean, it's done forever. 48 years. New York City has been lost. Another great iconic radio station. It's a trip back in time. It was a trip back into time. If you reminisce a radio station, and a lot of you listeners and fans have been remembering WPLJ. If you listen to other great radio stations, and then when the song was coming on, people remembered when the song was first heard on WPLJ. That was when they first heard of rock, when it first heard on back in the 1970s. And I know I'm listening to Saturday Night at the Oldies because of WROW. Let's go back for a second. Love is thicker than water. Andy Gibb. I'll take you there. That's not another Pleasant Valley Sunday. Monkeys. Yeah, this was back when PLJ was very popular. Yeah, when that song came on, that's the song. It was like people have remembered the song was first heard on WPLJ. Man, that was like going back to the last 48 years. Like people remembering back when it first heard on WPLJ, an Andy Gibb song when it was first heard on PLJ. Back in the days of New York's best rock. I mean, it was like, wow. It was later rock became hit records. Yeah, these were really, really popular in the 70s. This is a very, very well-known radio station. Yep, it finally bit the dust after all these years. And yeah, the memories have been faded away for good. Yeah, it's been one of the greatest iconic radio stations ever. And we all remembering PLJ, and that was like going back to a last number of years as it was a radio station that bringing back a lot of great memories. Yeah, the nostalgia, the memories we all remember from the days of when it was a radio station. And yes, it was known for Top Pittengull, Scott Shannon, Jim Kerr, Tony Pigg, John Zoccoli, the Cool Ghoul, Carol Miller, Pat St. John, and many, many more. I mean, over the years has been one hell of a run here. Now playing on America's most listened to FM radio station, the Rolling Stones, the WPLJ, New York's best rock. All over the place. Rod Stewart and Boston and the B-52s. Those were very great times when it was on PLJ. New York's best rock. Wow. The best variety of the 80s, 90s, and today. That was back in the days when that was played on PLJ. Man. Wow. What a great memory, looking back at the great format from the beginning of our childhood memories to that. Right to the very end of its radio career, a radio station has died. Yeah, it's like the day the music died, you know. That's last night, I like dubbed that last night. It was as of yesterday, it was the day the music died. WPLJ died as of yesterday. It's last night at 7 p.m., the day the music died. I know. It's like when Don McLean said that in the song that dubbed the words "the day the music died." It was that was a quote from Don McLean's "American Pie." Yeah, the Beatles, top 95 rockers, Led Zeppelin vintage concert programs. And yeah, as you can see, the surveys is from the PLJ. And these were a lot of top 95 rockers back in the days of PLJ. There's also Let It Be, Sgt. Pepper, Miss You, White Nights in White Satin. Those were back in the good old days of New York's best rock. Great radio. What a great memory. There's also Mojo Radio, New York City, WPLJ. And there's May 31st, that was the day the music died. New York WPLJ signed off and began broadcasting onto its new religious programming the next day. Yeah, it was actually after 7 o'clock. It originally was ended at midnight, but now they just back to back in like 7 o'clock instead of midnight. WPLJ Rock and Roll Radio 95.5. Do you PLJ today? Gotta love that tagline, the slogan. There's also Power 95, WPLJ radio, FM radio. Today's best music, WPLJ. Yeah, that's when the station was going downhill. Yep, that was where the station went downhill. I mean, WPLJ, that's when the station was starting to go downhill. Today's best music. Ugh. WPLJ salutes The Who in New York, March 1976. And there's also PLJ. New York's best rock, PLJ. And there you go. That was it. That's it. I just want to say that's all I got to say about PLJ. And the memories have just faded away after all 48 years. Different logos, and we've been done through this over the last 48 years as a radio station. We've been thanking everybody who has been listening to PLJ over the years. I'm not even a listener of WPLJ. I am not a listener to PLJ at the time back then. Yeah, I've heard a little bit back in the day, but I know I don't listen to that anymore because I'm not an average listener to WPLJ, and I'm not really a big fan of the station back at since the days when it was New York's best rock. It went off to a good start, but then it went to top 40 in the 80s, yeah, and then many people hated them, and yeah, we went on to oldies formats. They went on to WNEW-FM and then K-Rock when it started to come into the 80s after WPLJ dumped rock into top 40, and then many of these listeners ended up going to WNEW-FM and WAPP, which is the Apple, 103.5 The Apple. That was back in 1983, and when it was actually a rock station. And then by 85, they went over to K-Rock. That was back in the day. And there you go. That's it. Well, there you go. It was a trip back to memory lane, 48 years. Great nostalgia. A great nostalgia has been a very great run, and said this is what the history of PLJ was all about. As we say, if you don't like PLJ's K-Love new format, and don't listen to WPLJ anymore. Don't listen to K-Love. Yeah, stations really sucks. K-Love really sucks. I'm not really listening to Christian radio or Christian rock. Yeah, they're now running Christian rock now. But yeah, I don't listen to K-Love. Ugh, that sucks. Yeah, I always want to listen to other radio stations, including my stations. I always listen to my choices. I'm listening to any radio station of any choice, of your choice. See, I listen to radio stations of multiple choices. This is where you have to listen to gain a lot of my listening audience from the loss of other radio stations. WPLJ. That was when they did. One example is WPLJ. Yeah, that one. If I might have always followed them. Yeah, WCBS FM when it was an oldie station. Yeah, he actually brought some of its audience, half a chunk of its older, longtime fans from the loss of an oldies format back in 2005 when they dropped the format to Jack, to what it's actually then called at the time Jack FM. And yeah, that was way back in 2005. I remember one incredible story, one sad, disappointing story that back in 2005 when WCBS FM dumped the oldies format they got rid of all the oldies formats from the 50s and 60s we knew and loved, and then they flipped the format to Jack. You want to remember Jack FM? That was the most guilty pleasure radio stations in New York City. Because people hated Jack FM because they dropped the oldies format for good. And that's terrible. It was a terrible start since day one. Yeah, after 5 p.m., yeah, the station went off to a dumb, horrific start. I remember that was one in my recent memory was WCBS FM dumped the oldies format. So I had to look for other listeners to go to other stations that bring some of the listeners from the loss of Jack. No, from the loss of the original WCBS FM. Yeah, they brought the listeners from the loss of the original WCBS FM to go to this other stations at the time and right up until now. Yeah, that would have benefit the loss of our radio station. And then it went streaming all over, and then internet streaming all over became more popular, mainstream. Oh yes, one more thing. Rod Stewart, the Motown song. First heard on WPLJ. Back when it was Mojo Radio. And back when WPLJ was WPLJ as an adult contemporary format. Back in the 90s. When they played the Motown song by Rod Stewart. It's like a better variety of music. That was when they played a lot of these, remember that slogan, the best variety of the 80s, 90s, and today. And there you go. That's it. I have long story short to say, yeah, this video is taking long enough because this is a very well done because WPLJ has faded into history books forever. It's faded away. 48 years. It was an incredible run. We hope you enjoyed this video. A look back at WPLJ. We lost a great radio station. We have mourned the loss of the station. It became more popular. It's been one hell of a run for 48 straight years. And let's hope that if there's other radio stations out there, if you're a longtime fan of WPLJ, yeah, you can listen to other radio stations. You can listen to anything you want to gain former PLJ's audience. There you go. That's it. That's it. Done. And that's it for this video for a very special retrospective looking back at WPLJ when it was a rock station. From the rock station all the way to the adult contemporary format, right up to the end. Yeah, from rock to top 40 to the adult contemporary format. Man, that is just one hell of a ride. Man, this is what PLJ has been great. We say goodbye to this station, and we lost another great one. So, hope you enjoyed this video. If you like it, just if you tell us what you think in the comments below about your favorite memory about WPLJ, there you go. And that's just what you're expecting. And subscribe and hit the bell notification for new videos. And that's all I can say about that. So stay tuned. I got more videos to come. I have to do, including the VHS update video, since I have not done that since it was long overdue. And now I will see you in the next time. Until we meet again the next time. This is Chris, and we say goodbye to WPLJ, and I'll catch you later.